Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Hills Pruden, and I am so excited. We have another episode of the Sister Leaders podcast, and we have another awesome sister leader here. It is Heather Robinson, and she's going to tell you what all she does in this space called life. And so we're just going to get it. Let's get it. Let's go. So, Heather, tell us how wonderful you are.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are for the different time zones. First and foremost, I want to thank Dr. Hills Prudence for the opportunity to actually get on here with you on today and share. My name, as she said, is Heather Robinson, and I position people to identify their pain points so they can begin the healing process through writing, speaking, and educating. The ways in which I do that is coaching people through what I call RTT. RTT is an acronym I came up with maybe about 6 months ago, and it stands for Reclaiming Your Power, Taking Back Your Voice, and Telling Your Story. A little bit about how I got that. One day I was at my wit's end where it kind of was enough is enough. When will I get a chance to catch my breath? Grief upon grief upon grief. And one day I took a nap, and this was at night because I stay up at night. And the Lord woke me up maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. And from 6 o'clock, I apologize, 5 o'clock in the morning, from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, he just was downloading stuff and I was just writing it down, just the way he downloaded it. And as a result, I came up with a workbook, I came up with a course, I came up with a slideshow. So that is the core of what I do. I'm also the CEO and founder of Anointed2write. Our tagline is giving a voice to those who feel silenced. So it goes back to RTT because you have to be able to reclaim your power and take back your voice in order to tell your story. So that's the biggest, in my opinion, that's the biggest impact that I have. There are other things, but that's the biggest impact.
Well, that's quite a bit there. We have plenty that you can certainly talk about. Now, I'm going to ask this question and maybe you can share a little bit. A lot of it is speaking and writing, but where does the reclaiming your power and taking back your voice, was there a period in your life where that was an issue with you? Because I know sometimes people find their passion and purpose through experiences. So tell us, how does that connect to you? Where did that come from?
So as a child, I'm the youngest of nine. So that right there, fighting for your voice, because in the era I grew up in, we were taught you defend your siblings. And that was it. It didn't matter who it was against. It didn't matter if it was your best friend. If it was between your best friend and your sibling, back then you were to pick your sibling. And so what happened was, as a young child, my siblings would speak up for me. They weren't doing it to be malicious, but that's kind of how we were raised. But then we all grew up and everybody moved on with their respective lives. And I'm sitting as an adult trying to figure out, how do I handle this situation? How do I handle that situation? Because I'm used to someone running to my aid. And I realized I didn't have a voice. It wasn't until last year that I actually was able to reclaim my power and take back my voice. That's when I was able to start telling my story through the books that I have self-published, as well as opportunities on stage.
I love that. So tell us about your books. So tell us about your books. What are they about, or how many do you have? And tell us a little bit about your books.
So in 2017, I actually connected with a minister who also was a publisher. So I was like, I really, really, really had this book that I've been writing since 2012. And I said, this needs to come out. And I can't take credit for the title because the Lord specifically gave it to me. So everything that pertains to Anointed2write from its name on came from God. So my first book is A Season of Pressing, A Spiritual Awakening. That was the first time that I actually shared my writing with the world, because I've been writing since I was 15. So I shared my writing in 2017, the traditional way. But in 2020, my publisher passed away. And so when he passed away, all the rights came back. And now you're here with this book and you got to start over. So I kept going back and forth with myself, because in 2010, the Lord gave me Anointed to Write. I didn't do anything with it until 2021. So in 2020, I'm trying to figure it out. And then in 2021, I asked a best girlfriend of mine, I said, can you check the domain Anointed2write and let me know if it's still available? Lo and behold, it was still available. So after 11 years, it was still there, which told me it was a God thing, not a me thing. So because of that, I decided, all right, Lord, we're going to do this book together. And I self-published that book in December of 2022, that was a reprint, along with 2 other books. So by January of 2023, I had 3 books.
I love that. And so what does writing do for you? I know some people say it's therapeutic. Some people use it as a way to document, because of course the longer we live, the more experiences we have. So what does writing do for you, or does it do anything for you? What is the purpose behind your writing?
So my purpose specifically for myself was to find my voice. And while I was going through that process last year, no, 2021, I lost a sister. She just had an asthma attack and she couldn't survive it. So that devastation, and then I had to get 15 fibroids removed surgically, which were the size of a baby. So imagine having a C-section but not coming home with anything. And then I lost my job, and there was just a lot of different things that were happening. I couldn't get my footing, and I couldn't figure out how to put into words how I felt. And so the Lord said, you need to start sharing your story, because not only is that going to help you, but at the end of the day, you help other people, because you don't go through what you go through for you. We're selfish to think that. But we go through what we go through to help someone else to get through to the other side. So how dare I not share my story? So as I was in bed for 6 weeks on bed rest, I wrote a 30-day devotional. It actually took me probably 3 days to actually write it, because it was a collection of, I used to send out text messages to people, thought for the day. And the Lord said, now you're going to turn that into a devotional. And then he said, now you're going to actually figure out how you're going to get this out to the world. I held on to that devotional. But what I've learned with that book, A Season of Pressing, and I have the book that's like kind of a tell-all, but not really. And it's entitled To Wholeness from Brokenness, Will Ye Be Made Whole? That actually is the book that brings people to tears. My purpose was not to bring people to tears. The purpose of me writing is to help people to understand that you're not alone. You don't go through what you go through out of punishment for yourself, but it's so you can help other people get through. And you have a voice. Your story is valuable. The time is now. Tell your story. So all of that goes into the why behind the writing.
I love that. And so what you just said kind of co-sign. I have a speaker coach, Dr. Cheryl Wood, and she always say that your story is not for you, it's for others. And so you just co-sign that. She always said that there's people out there waiting for you to get in a position to share your story. They are either going through or about to go through what you have come through, because she's also an advocate for, you can only tell your story once you're able to tell your story. Like if you're in the midst of the storm, that might not be the best time to tell the story if you are emotional and it's still triggering you. But once you're on the other side, it is good for people to see too that there isn't another side, and it is positive, and that this too shall pass. So you definitely confirm what she has been saying for years. And so tell us about the speaker, Heather, and what do you speak about, and who are your ideal clients that you speak to?
So, as a speaker, my signature talk is navigating through pain to purpose. I've been navigating that since in the womb because I was medically not supposed to be here. And then to lose a sister in 2021 and another one in 2022 to cancer, and realize that although I wasn't medically supposed to be here, I outlived two sisters that didn't go through the same experience in the womb. So again, how dare I not utilize my story and my experience to impact others? Navigating through pain to purpose goes hand in hand with RTT because you have to be able to peel back layers in order to deal with things. You got to deal to heal. And you can't tiptoe around what you've been through. It's like hiding behind a tree, right? You know, not to get biblical, but even when Adam and Eve hid behind figs because Eve ate the apple, you can't hide behind things because at the end of the day, what you're going through is still what you're going through, whether you hide it or you don't. And there's a difference between sharing your testimony and telling your business. Our job is to share our testimony, not tell our business, right? The two are not the same.
So tell me about the difference, because I may not be, I may think I know the difference, but tell me the difference.
A lot of us are afraid to share our testimony because we feel like it's telling our business, right? So a lot of times if you go through, here's one thing, when I was diagnosed with fibroids, no one was talking about it that was in my circle. But when I said I was getting the surgery, there were so many people in that same circle talking about it, right? People kept it to themselves because they didn't want to tell their business. That's not necessarily telling your business if God took you to the other side. Everybody's journey is different, but he took you to the other side of it. And there are people who went through whatever type of surgery they went through to remove their fibroids, and as a result, they were able to conceive a child. That's a testimony to stand on and share with someone else. They don't have to know the ins and outs of what was happening. They don't have to know if you went through in vitro. They don't have to know if you, whatever. The object is to share, hey, you have fibroids, I had it too. This is what happened to me, and this is how God brought me through. These are the steps that I took. Because sometimes when you know a better way, you do better. If someone said something to me, maybe I wouldn't have had an open myomectomy.
So and that's interesting because I was thinking about how do you get the green light to know that it's okay to speak? And the reason why I say that is because there have been times where a conversation has come up, and because one person shares, that almost to me is like the green light that I could share with them, you know, what my experience is. But I have also been very few times been in situations where I have attempted to share, but based on the nonverbals, maybe it looked as though it wasn't well received. So how do you, I'm thinking if I put myself in the place of like those other individuals in that group that you were in where they didn't share in the beginning, maybe because they didn't know it was safe to share, but they shared later when you entertained a conversation or maybe got deeper into what you were going through, then that was like the green light for them to know that it was okay to share what they had experienced in the situation. So I guess my question is, how do we as individuals know that it's okay to share? Because I think it's important that we do share. I agree. You know, I'm dealing with situations where people in my family don't talk about medical history, and now things are coming up, and you know, somebody died of diabetes and kind of find out quite a few people had diabetes. I mean, it's just, you know, people just don't talk about it. So how do you know that it's okay to share?
I definitely think that's a great question. You definitely have to read the room. And sometimes reading the room is not physically reading a room, right? You could be in a conversation with two people. You have to read body language. You have to read conversation. You have to really pay close attention to know when to share and what to share and how much to share. So it's a balance between discernment and tactfulness. Because some people don't use tact, just to be honest, right? And there's a generation of people that feel like they can say what they want to say, how they want to say it, when they want to say it. And that worked for that time period, but that doesn't work for today. And so a part of keeping up with what works for today is really like reading those cues. You know, we have verbal and nonverbal cues. People throw you clues all the time. And I know for me, I brought up the fibroid situation when I first was diagnosed with it. No one talked about it. And then I said, you know, now they're growing. Like it took a lot to get somebody to say, hey, I went through that. Everybody's different. Some people will share, some people won't share. But I do think that you really have to read the room and pay attention to those verbal, but especially nonverbal cues, because we'll say one thing and sometimes mean another.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why the majority of the messaging is in the nonverbals. Um, I can't even hear what you're saying if your nonverbal is saying the opposite of what your words are. I'm paying attention to your body language, your arms crossed, you know, your tone, your facial expression, your heightened eyebrows, just all of those things. And your words could be just as positive and pleasant, but the full message
Mm-hmm.
when I look up is saying something different. And so truly active listeners, visually active is not just listening from an audio standpoint. An active listener is one who pays attention to the nonverbals, which means that we have to be in the moment when we're having conversations. A lot of
Yes.
times we're so distracted that we miss the nonverbals, and we only hear the verbals because we're looking at our cell phones, or we're driving down the street, or we're trying to multitask. And so all we're concerned about is the audio, but we miss the true message because we didn't look at that person and know that there was some conflict there. And the conflict was the verbal words and the nonverbal mannerisms that will cause you to ask some follow-up questions.
And sometimes I think we listen to respond more so than listening for understanding.
Absolutely.
And that's where it turns into something where people pull away or draw back. But we're in such a time in today's time where people really are looking, they're really looking for a solution. People are looking for a way out. People don't have addictions for the fun of it, right? People use addictions to numb themselves, and people limit it to drugs and alcohol. It's way more to addiction than that.
Oh, absolutely.
But because we are set up as society, we are a judgmental people. We only look at what we can see. People can look as pleasant as they want to and have all the physical pleasantries and can be dying inside. So for me, because I was that person, my goal is to help the underdog, to help the person that's forgot about, to help the person that you'll walk past instead of stopping to see if they're okay, right? And it doesn't mean that they look bad. It means sometimes you'll walk by that person because you assume they got it together. They don't need nothing. That's not always the case.
Yep.
But because we judge by outer appearance, because this person can clean up nice and they put on a good mask, they're fine. We'll just move on to the next. No, they're dying inside, but you didn't pay attention to the eyes. Yep. You can tell a lot about a person by looking them in their eyes.
Absolutely. And I just, I had a relative who had this crazy country phrase, like a hit dog will yell or something like that. And so I'm yelling because I am somewhat that person. So I keep a lot to myself. And so I always tell people, check on your strong friend, but really I'm talking about myself, because a lot of times, you don't have to fall totally apart when you're going through stuff. And people believe that you can't go to work every day and be productive, can't take care of your kids and be productive, participate in church and be productive and have problems. And that's just simply not true. You can do
Right.
all of those things, and your hair can be combed, and you could be dressing and bathing every day just like everybody else and still be going through those things. But because we don't physically see something that causes our alarms to go off, people think it is okay. So what I learned several years ago, a friend of mine kind of chastised me because I guess I'm the strong friend, because I got that phrase from her, check on your strong friend, from her. Um, she said, when people ask you how you're doing, you're not always fine. Because I had a habit of saying, when people say, hey, how you doing? Fine. I was fine for everything. And she said, nobody is fine for everything.
True.
There has to be some days where you're not fine. And she said, um, you should have one or two confident people that, when they ask you how you're doing, that you feel comfortable enough with them that you give them a real answer that is beyond and deeper than fine. And because these people probably care about you and they probably can do something to assist you. But if you keep saying you're fine and you're looking fine, so you're already looking fine and you're saying you're fine, but you're not fine. But then when you get with your own thoughts, it's like, nobody don't understand. Well, they don't understand because you haven't told them and they can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning how to be vulnerable, at least with one or two key confidants. I believe everybody should have one or two key confidants that they can talk to when they're not fine, even though they look fine. I think is critical to people talking more.
I think it's also important to deal with trust issues because I used to be the same way. Everything's fine. I don't need nobody in my business. I don't trust nobody. They don't care no way. Well, you don't really know if they care. You
Mm-hmm.
don't really know if you can trust people because you've already set in your mind that you're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it does take, again, peeling back those layers and allowing somebody in. Because as leaders, right, the saying goes, leaders don't bleed on their people. I'm
Yeah.
not telling you to bleed on your mentee. I'm telling you to lean on your confidant, as you call them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes more than a spouse.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to
Absolutely.
have someone other than your spouse because if he's at work, what you gonna do? Call him? He can't answer. You gonna text him? He gonna text back in 2 hours when he sees it because he's at work.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you gotta balance your relationships.
I agree. I agree. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about, what is it like being the youngest of nine? Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine. What is it like? How did you carve your identity? I know that you said you had people speaking for you, but what is it like, um, just being in such a big family and carving out a space for yourself as you're growing into and evolving, and from girl to teenager, from teenager to young lady to woman. I would imagine that evolution is quite different from someone else who didn't grow up in a family of nine.
So evolution is funny, especially in a big family and especially when you're the youngest. But I feel like in families in general, there are certain like tug of wars. So as the youngest, no matter how old you get, the elders think that they are your authority. So some things that I had to do was set boundaries. And the reason I encourage everybody to set boundaries with your mother, your father, your siblings, your best friend, whoever's closest to you. The reason it's important is because if you don't set boundaries, you are not going to have a peaceful life. You can't prosper in chaos. The two just don't mix. So I had to set healthy boundaries. Okay, so listen, these are my boundaries, whatever your boundaries are. Some people have to set boundaries to let family members know this is my marriage, this is my husband, this is my wife. you will respect him or her, or we're not going to come around. That's an example of a healthy boundary. Now, family members, especially if you're really, really close to your sisters, or if you're really, really close to your mom, women tend to have more of an issue with that than men do. So I don't really have any issues like with the brothers. They kind of just, But women have an issue with that because by nature, we move different. We want to be together. We want to talk all the time. We want to lay up in each other's bed and watch the movie. We want to be on the phone for hours at a time. Sometimes you got to grow up, and sometimes God is trying to grow you up. And so if you're going to be, as you say, sister leaders, and you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're running multiple businesses, you can't lay up on the phone with somebody all day. You can't lay up watching movies with your best girlfriend eating popcorn all day. When you get to the point where you're a multi-million-dollar earner and you have people running your business for you and you're the overseer, maybe you could do that twice a week. But the average person can't do that. So you have to have healthy boundaries across the board. And if people don't respect your business, they can't be a part of it. If people don't respect your immediate family, which for us would be our spouses. For those who have children, it's your children and your spouses. That's your immediate family. If people outside of that can't respect that, then you have to kind of let them know, if you don't respect this, you can't come around it. The healthy boundaries are what really helped. And as far as finding my voice, this is going to be so interesting because I'm still trying to wrap my psyche around it. In August of 2022, when my sister took her last breath, I got my voice back. I can't really make it make sense for other people, but I was trying to protect her from knowing certain things because I knew she was on her deathbed. But at the same time, it was a tug of war with me because she had breast cancer. She survived breast cancer, so God delivered her from that, but then it came in the form of ovarian cancer. I carried the gene of cancer that she died from. So because by nature, her being the older sister, she's constantly, I don't want to say worried, maybe concerned about me as the younger sister. There were certain things that it kind of was like, no, we need to pivot our attention to you. So I had to keep redirecting her focus because you're on your deathbed, yet you're still worried about me, which shows two things. Number one, you're still operating as we did as children in the older sister spot, but you're also selfless. Who's on their deathbed worried about somebody else? So I learned so much in that experience about being a woman, being a leader, and being able to help other people to heal, because she knew she wasn't going to heal on this side, but in the process, she was trying to help me. So that's kind of why I say I got my voice when she took her last breath.
Wow, that is powerful. And was she the oldest or just the oldest sister of you?
So in 2021, our oldest sister passed away. She was the first girl. 2022, the second girl passed away. So there's two of us left.
Okay.
Yet I'm still the youngest.
So I think you're going to always be the youngest. But you know what what I heard you say was powerful for anybody, and even for your sister, that she still, even though you probably have set boundaries over time, she still was in protection mode. When you talked about her being selfless, that is probably, even if you have a conversation about boundaries, that it is probably something that will never go away among siblings. They just learn how to control what comes out so that it doesn't impact your relationship. Because that's how I interpret what you just said, in that, oh no, it was always there. It was going to be there. You just, if you had a conversation about boundaries, then the individual then have to determine, how they rein in certain things so that it doesn't adversely impact your relationship. But she was always going to be in protection mode of you. It doesn't matter when, and so, yeah, that's very deep and very telling of her as an individual and her relationship with You.
Yeah, she was very protective because my mom was sick by around the time she had me. I actually think I'm the reason that she got sick, or part of the reason. And my mom died when I was 7. So that sister actually helped physically like take care of us. Like even when I was young, she was changing my diaper and all of that. So there was a different type of relationship there. So it
Mm-hmm.
felt like a two-edged sword type of loss. So it was
Yes.
like another mother figure, but also a sister who was my confidant and I talked to multiple times per day. I remember when I worked and I had to be to work at 6:30 in the morning, I would walk to work and call her at 6 o'clock in the morning. Every morning she'd stay on the phone with me until I got in.
Wow.
Just those types of things stand out for
Mm-hmm.
me. And I know that there's people that never had that in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody needs somebody. And so you need to know that you're valuable. You need to know that you're loved. You have a story that matters. So, I also do writing coaching, speaker prep, media etiquette, but the writing piece and the speaking piece for me, for people that are trying to heal and make impact, a part of your healing process is to help someone else. So you may be able to stand on a stage 10 toes down and share your story without getting emotional, but you're impacting other people in the process and you're encouraging them that one day I'll be able to do the same. So that's why I think it's great. I actually saw you in DC. That's where we were. I got free tickets from Dr. Cheryl Wood to go to DC with
Oh,
her
okay.
and Trent and Lisa Nichols and Gloria Mayfield Banks. And I love Trent Shelton. But that's something, watching the four of them come together, that was another encouraging moment to say, like, okay, these four Black people can come together and make impact in such a way where they all four have such different audiences and bring them all together. Anything's possible.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I'm a strong advocate for partnership and collaborations. And what Dr. Cheryl has been like my speaking coach for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years. Yeah, and she's partnership and collaboration. That's what she stands for, which is why I'm probably still around, because we both stand for a lot. So you were there when she pulled me up on the stage and I didn't have my shoes on. Girl, that was a whole comical, because I wasn't, it wasn't planned, and I literally did not have on any shoes when she called my name. So trying to get those heels on, and so the people couldn't notice, and everybody in my row just laughing. But yeah, that was interesting. I had fun for that event. I wanted to see how four powerhouses came together and what that looked like. I wanted to be in the room to see, what it all looked like and how they presented themselves. And I'm somebody who does events, and so Dr. Cheryl always does things in excellence too. And so I wanted to scope out how she was going to present it, and the branding and the marketing and all that stuff. And so I'm a leader, but I'm also in student mode a lot when I go out into the public. So I'm paying attention to how people respond to people and how they present their events and present themselves. And so let me ask you, who are your ideal clients? Is it just women, or do you also work with men? Or tell me about who your ideal clients are and where do they come from? How do you get them?
The reason my ideal clients are men and women is because grief has no gender.
Yep.
The second portion of that is my age range of like who I've worked with has pivoted over time, because the ages of, I want to say like 25 to 45 have typically been like who I attract, which is very interesting because I'm closer to 45 than I am to 25 or 30, but
Mm-hmm.
or 35. But that seems to be the people that are reaching out, and I haven't really been able to like pinpoint the why behind the reason why they reach out. I just welcome it. So if you're, if you're going through anything and you're trying to figure it out, that's kind of what it is. And a lot of people that don't have a voice, or they don't think they have a voice, so they have to kind of take it back. That's a powerful thing right there, to take back that which was stripped from you. People have been abused. People have been mistreated. People have been kicked out of their careers and pushed to retire early with these severance packages that don't really support you. So there's a lot of different things people are dealing with, and grief is more than just the death of a loved one. So,
Absolutely. And absolutely. And when you said that, I was like, because of the examples that you gave right before you said that, I was like, yep, absolutely. Jobs, businesses not being successful,
having a
different
big
type.
event that failed, that's a
Yeah.
grief.
Yep, different type of relationships and interactions in relationships, that that you heavily relied on,
Mm-hmm.
through as you grew up or whatever, or interact. So yeah, and it can be some hard grief now that I think about it. Just thinking
Mm-hmm.
about like some friends who had difficulties getting over relationships that no longer exist. They were part of their healing was for them not to be in those relationships, but they still had to go through the grief of not being in those relationships,
Mm-hmm.
which was quite interesting. So I this has been a good conversation. The good thing about having your own show is that you can break the rules, because we talked a little bit longer than what I anticipated, but I don't cut people off. I like to, because when I want to hear what you have to say, I want to hear what you have to say. So what I want you to do is share with the Sister Leaders podcast community anything that you have coming up, a way that they can stay in contact with you, be connected to you, whether it's virtually or just anything that we can show forth for those people who have, like, I want to know more about Heather Robinson.
So the best way to get in contact with me, I do have a link tree under Anointed2write LLC, but I am really heavily on Facebook, and my Facebook handle is Heather Robinson. And the reason I'm heavily on Facebook is because there are so many people that are hurting that are in my inbox. So if I were to pull away from Facebook, you really don't know. I've shared my story with people, and it has stopped them from committing suicide. That's how important sharing your story is, because you could really be the determining factor of whether or not someone's going to take their life or attempt to. So that's how you get in contact with me. I'm still writing more books. I'm actually working on a writer's planner right now. And the books that I have now, they are $10. I do also charge for shipping. We'll be putting out a Christmas special coming soon.
Okay.
So
you better hurry up, girl. Tick tock, tick tock.
yeah, I'm just kind of coming off of a high, because I received 2 global awards this year towards the end of the year, which 2 of them, one was in November and one was actually at the top of this month. So that's different for me. That's my first time doing that.
Okay, well, we need more information. Don't hide it. We need you to put it out there now. We need to know so we can congratulate and be excited for you. Tell us about them.
So one is the Global Iconic Changemaker Award. That was interesting for me, because I don't really even know how I got that award. Like, I don't know if someone nominated, because a lot of times with awards, when someone nominates you, sometimes you'll know they nominate you, sometimes you won't. It just depends. So that was interesting for me, because I had never gotten an international award. And so this year has opened, like, God redeemed the time. Last year, I had to spend time taking care of an ailing sister, but this year, He redeemed the time. I've gotten 2 book awards, these 2 global awards, but I've been nominated for 17 different awards in 2023. I actually was a finalist for the Sister Leaders Award.
Okay.
And so getting all these nominations, the awards are great too, but I don't ignore the fact that I had nominations where I was finalist. To me, they are equally as important because that means that somebody thought enough of me to nominate me for whatever the award is. So I never try to kind of say, oh, well, that was just a nomination. No, you know how they say Grammy nominated, Emmy Award nominated. What's the other one? Oscar nominated. No, you're still nominated. That's still a big deal. So we don't throw those away. I've been on 20 different podcasts and 15 different magazines, and LMA International magazine actually came in my inbox to feature me. That was big for me because it's like, okay, somebody that's international is in my inbox trying to feature me. That's huge, you know? And that was free of charge, which I thought was amazing. I'm like, y'all are international. How are you? But mind my business and go ahead on and let God keep doing what he's doing.
That's right. God don't need a cosigner. That's what I say.
That's
He don't
right.
need a cosigner. I love it. So before we leave, I will just a tidbit, which I'm a stickler for. So make sure you document everything. Sometimes we get in the midst of having all of this recognition and we do a lot and we forget a lot too, because we done moved on to the next thing. So make sure that you document all of your nominations, every place that you spoke. I usually do at the end of the year. Well, January 1st, I usually do a look back for the previous year on everything that I've done, and I publish it as my report card. Like, hey, here's my report card. This is how many speaking engagements, how many magazines, how many awards, how many people that I've impacted. But it is also a reminder for us, because we're so quick to move on to the next thing, of how much work we're really doing here on God's earth. And so I encourage you to document it before you lose it, moving on to the next thing. Because some of that stuff, just because of the sheer numbers, some of that stuff you're going to forget if you don't document it. And so this has been wonderful. I encourage you to find Heather. Now, I'm not sure how many Heather Robinsons it is on Facebook, but you see her beautiful face. This is the Heather Robinson that you wanted, and is anointed to, what is it? Anointed to,
right.
What is right? Yeah, Anointed2write. I remember RTT, but Anointed2write. This is the Heather Robinson that you want. And so this has been another episode of the Sister Leaders, the podcast. We are so excited about you joining us, and stay tuned for next Monday, because you know we release a new guest speaker every Monday for a new speaker. Thank you so much. Hold on one second. Start recording.